All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to thank our board member, John Munoz, for arranging this interview. This is someone I know a lot of us have wanted to hear from a long time. He is a local boy. He is a hero. He is a UCLA Bruin. He is a Minnesota Viking. He is an activist. He is an author. And many other things. He was a punter in the NFL. He played college football for the Bruins. He played 8 years for the Vikings. He played for the Seahawks, the Vikings, and the Raiders. He's widely known for setting 8 individual team records with the Vikings. He became an outspoken advocate on social issues, including same-sex marriage and gay rights, which ultimately led to tension between Chris and the coaching staff of the Vikings. You may have heard this in February. In Huntington Beach, Chris was arrested for peaceful civil disobedience at a city council meeting. He was protesting a plaque commemorating the library's 50th anniversary that included the phrase MAGA, which the city council pretended was not political. So Chris will discuss his current activities, what he's doing now, how we can all become more active like Chris, hopefully like Chris, his activism while in the NFL, and he'll talk about the first 100 days of the Trump administration, which I understand has been going pretty well, right, Chris? So how about a big hand for Chris Kluwe?
All right, give me a second. I got to adjust this. There we go. Sorry, I'm kind of tall. So thank you for the wonderful introduction. Thank you for having me here. I am Chris Kluwe, former Minnesota Vikings punter. And yeah, a lot of my background was covered there in that I grew up in Seal Beach. I am a local kid. Pretty much Minnesota was the first time I moved out of state. And so even growing up, I heard stories about what went on in Huntington Beach, kind of the white supremacy and the extremism that was there. People said, stay away from the surf Nazis, stay away from the skinheads. Like that was a thing that's been in Huntington Beach, and it's been in Huntington Beach for a long time. Now, my wife and I got a house there in 2008 because it seemed like the city was moving in the right direction finally. There was some sort of sanity starting to take hold in Huntington Beach. Unfortunately, 2020 and COVID happened, and it seems like everyone lost their mind. So that was when the MAGA city council members first started taking over. And they initially started taking over because, they want to remold the city in their image, and they want to use it as a test bed for the MAGA philosophy to spread it across the rest of Southern California. And so what we instantly saw with this city council is they were not interested in debate. They were not interested in listening to the residents of Huntington Beach who had a differing viewpoint from them. They were going to do what they wanted to do regardless of how much it cost the city. In terms of financial cost, we are facing a pretty hefty financial cost for the MAGA agenda. Our balance sheet for the city went from a $15 million surplus to an $8 million deficit. So we get that to deal with. That happened in about 3 years. The city council had a settlement with the Pacific Air Show. I don't know if y'all remember when the oil spill happened back, I think that was like 2022. The air show sued Huntington Beach, claiming that it was Huntington Beach's fault that we had to close down the beach. It's like, well, no, that's an oil spill. That's, A, an act of God, and B, it's the state and federal government coming in saying that you have to close down the beach, so the city should not be held liable. Our city council decided to settle with them and pay the air show $8 million. In addition, they also signed a contract for the next, I believe, 30 years, guaranteeing the air show that they will perform, and they will get all revenue from parking spaces that the city owns during the air show. So this was a pretty sweet deal that a lot of residents don't think needed to happen. So yeah, there. We believe there are connections there. Yes, that someone's getting paid off somewhere. So yeah, anyways, that's what we have to deal with in Huntington Beach. And so this city council has also gone after our public library, which is an amazing public library. If you guys have not been to the Huntington Beach Central Library, I highly recommend it because it's a fantastic architectural design. It's right in the middle of Central Park, so you have cool walking trails and nature nearby, and the librarians do an amazing job curating the book collection as well as putting on events and services for residents and anyone who wants to show up. We get people there like every day from cities surrounding Huntington Beach because of how good the Huntington Beach Public Library is. So Needless to say, we do not want the city council messing with the library. However, one of our city council members, Gracie Vandermark, she really does not like the city library or the public library. And so she decided that she wanted a certain amount of books banned from the children's section. Now, almost all of these books had to deal with either sex ed or LGBTQ issues. And it was very clear that Gracie's objection with these books was because she does not believe that LGBTQ people should have visibility or be represented or frankly exist. She's made it very clear that she does not think that LGBTQ representation is important. So she tried to ban the books. Everyone in Huntington Beach was like, that's not cool. Don't ban the books. We all showed up at the city council meeting and yelled at them saying, don't ban the books. So then Gracie decided, oh, we're going to create a book banning board. They didn't call it a book banning board. They called it an oversight committee, which would be in charge of determining the acceptability of content in the library. 21-person board in charge of all the books in the library, because they say it's only for the kids section, but it's going to end up being all the books in the library. These people do not need to have any credentials whatsoever. The only credential they need is to be 18 years old or older and living in Huntington Beach. And I guarantee you it's not going to be a diverse array of residents of Huntington Beach that are on that book banning board. So the community came together again, yelled at them during city council, as we like to do. And we got signatures for a ballot initiative. That's the first, and I'll get to the ballot initiatives in just a second. So basically, we're like, no, if you want this book banning board, we don't want it. We're going to get enough signatures to put it to a ballot measure, and we're going to get rid of this book banning board. So then the next thing they tried to do is to privatize the library. That went over well, as you can imagine. That was the second ballot initiative that we ended up getting signatures for. So both of these ballot initiatives are on our special election coming up on June 10th. And if you are a Huntington Beach resident or know a Huntington Beach resident, please tell them to vote yes on measures A and B to protect the library. That is really important for us because we need to show the city council they can't do whatever they want. So anyways, they tried to privatize it. We fought back against it. And then they got around to the MAGA plaque, which is where I got somewhat famous. At this point, this has been going on for about 2.5 years. And I was sick and fed up with it. I mean, I've been going to these city council meetings. And the thing that really upset me is that I don't know what city council meetings are like here in Palos Verdes because I've just haven't been here, but city council meetings should be boring, right? We should be talking about infrastructure. We should be talking about potholes and street signs and how we are going to balance the budget. You should not have exciting city council meetings. That's not the point of city government. It's not supposed to be partisan. You're doing the best job for the city as a whole. Huntington Beach is not like that. So when they proposed this MAGA plaque that was going to go on the library, the acrostic, by the way, is magical, alluring, galvanizing, and adventurous. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my library to be alluring. It's probably the wrong message we want to send. So anyway, so I saw this plaque. They presented at the library commission meeting, which was the week before. And even at the library commission meeting, 90% of the people that spoke out were against the plaque, including people that had voted for the city council. They're like, this plaque is really ugly. We don't want it representing our library. And then a lot of us were like, we don't want a political message on our library's acknowledgement. Like, we want the library to be celebrated because, again, it's an amazing library. It's been, there's a 50-year anniversary for that branch. We don't want MAGA on it. We don't want any political message on it. They rubber stamped it, no discussion, because that's how they operate, sent it straight to the council, which I knew was going to happen. And then we come to the actual city council meeting. And if you've ever watched Huntington Beach city council meetings over the past couple of years or attended one, what you will notice is that the people giving public comment are resigned because they know that the city council won't listen to them. And we want to make our voices heard because that's an important part of public governance. But I have never seen our city council actually debate something. I have never seen them talk about any issues brought up during public comment. They have their agenda and they're going to vote 7-0 on their agenda because that's what they're deciding to do, regardless of what's good for the community or not. And so when this plaque came up in the city council meeting, I knew I needed to do something more because obviously they're not listening to us as citizens. They're not hearing our voices as the public. And so as a history and poli-sci major, I was like, okay, well, what's the next step? And the next step is peaceful civil disobedience. America has a long history of peaceful civil disobedience. It's gone back through the years. I mean, the civil rights movement, right? The suffragette movement. Even in the early days of the Civil War, before it actually became a hot war, there was a lot of peaceful civil disobedience going on to try to change people's minds. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give my speech. In my speech, I made a direct comparison between the MAGA movement and the Nazis because I do believe that they are a Nazi movement and they are explicitly a Nazi movement. I cited my sources. That's online if you want to check it out. But I also knew, okay, I need to do something more. And so after I finished speaking, I stepped out from behind the dais, or from behind the podium, approached the dais, and then told the policeman who approached me, I'm going to go limp because, I'm going to take up this space. I'm going to show you that this is so important to me as a citizen of this city that you can't be forced to look away, that you have to acknowledge that I am here taking this space and that this is important to us. And so the police, they were very professional, kudos to HBPD on that. I hope they remain professional. Police carried me out, everyone was cheering and yelling, and it went a little viral, which is why I'm here speaking to you today. Okay, roundabout way to get to how does this have to deal with Trump's first 100 days in office? Well, the biggest part is what we're seeing in Huntington Beach is a microcosm of what we are seeing in the nation as a whole. We are seeing a government that does not listen to its people, that does not care what is for the best health of this country. I mean, you can see that with the decisions being made in the Department of Health, right? You can see that being made in the decisions in the Department of Justice with diversity and equity and inclusion. I mean, you can see that with Trump's tariffs. Financially, that is a bomb that's about to go off in this country. You guys all live near the Port of Long Beach. Like, I'm sure you've seen the lack of ships coming into the Port of Long Beach, which is not good. Like that harms small businesses, that harms truckers, that it has a ripple effect that goes throughout our entire economy, and it's just going to keep happening because that's a supply chain that takes a while to get going, but now that he's cut it, we can't just instantly flip a switch and fix it. So again, these are all national problems that have been put into place by a group that does not want to listen to citizens. They have their agenda. Most of it's the 2025 agenda. You can go look it up online. But they want to do that no matter what. And me, as an American, I don't like that. And I want to fight back against that because in a democracy, you are a public servant. You are not an emperor. You are not a king. You are not a god tyrant. No matter how much you post on Twitter that you want to be, that's just not how it works. And you can't wave an American flag and support a guy who wants to be a king. Like those two things just don't work together. We actually fought a war about that. It was a while ago. So anyway, so for me, this is why I fought back in Huntington Beach. This is why I'm continuing to fight back, both by doing speaking engagements like this, by being involved in the ballot initiatives in Huntington Beach that we have going on right now. Again, if you guys can help out with that, perfect. If not, tell your friends. If you have them that live in Huntington Beach, let them know, vote yes twice. We would really appreciate that. But a lot of this is us as Americans coming together and deciding we don't want tyranny. We don't want kings. We can go back to arguing with each other over the budget, over our involvement in foreign affairs after we save our country itself. Because we are in a fight to save our country itself. Like we literally are in a fight for America. Because if this Trump administration is allowed to continue doing what they're doing, we will no longer be a democracy. And so it's very important that we understand that and that we fight back against it. And I know for a lot of people that can be scary, right? Like, and I know for me, when I walked out from behind the podium, like I was nervous. Wasn't the most nervous I've ever been. That was probably my first NFL game, but it ranked up there. It was probably like second or third. But again, I felt it was that important to do that I needed to do it. And it was something I wanted to see from my elected officials, and I hadn't been seeing it yet. I'm still not seeing it yet. I'm seeing some smatters of resistance. Cory Booker's filibuster, like that was really good. Adam Schiff placing a hold on Ed Martin for Attorney General of DC, that was really good. But we need more. We need our elected officials to fight, and we need them to lead the way to get other people to fight. And if they're not willing to do it, then we have to show them. And then we have to demand that they come with us on this fight against tyranny. So if you ever feel down, if you ever feel like, oh, shoot, can we get over this? I want you to think back to the various parts of human history where we went through much worse. During the civil rights movement, it was way worse. There were policemen with water cannons and dogs and literally beating people up and throwing them in jail. We're not yet at that point, right? During the suffragette movement for women to get the right to vote, again, same thing. Cops with water cannons and dogs, women getting tackled and beaten in the street. We're not yet at that point. The fight against slavery, right? That was way worse than what we're currently in, and we got through it. So we have to come together as communities. We can't be scared of fighting, and we have to do what we can. Now, that being said, you don't have to do what I did, right? Like everyone fights in their own way. Everyone finds their own way to contribute. I'm not expecting all of you to go get arrested at your city council meetings. particularly if it's a boring city council. If it is, that's good. You have good city governance. But what you can do is find ways to contribute, right? You can knock on doors if you're a more outgoing person. You can phone bank, you can write postcards, you can get involved. Obviously, being here is a great thing to do because you're already involved. Show up at your city council meetings, make public comment, let people know what you believe in and what your voice is, let it be heard, right? Because if all of us do that, then it gives all of us hope for the future because it's not just me, right? I had so many people come up to me and be like, well, I saw you. And I was like, I'm not alone, right? And that's what we need. We need all of us to be out there. We need all of us to be visible saying we are here to fight. We are not going to let our democracy go away. And so, yeah, that's pretty much my story. I want us to fight. I want our elected officials to fight. I want all of us to hold our elected officials accountable when they don't fight. And I prefer Q&A because that's a lot more fun than me just kind of like talking at you. So I'm going to open this up to questions because I really enjoy answering questions instead. So thank you, everyone. Yeah, sure.
Okay, you were the first one, so thank you. Before I ask my question, I just want to share that the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, the second largest Democratic Party in the country, passed a resolution reaffirming our support of peaceful protest, and your name was featured in that resolution.
Yep, and I thank them for it.
And they're both going to speak at the upcoming convention.
Yes, that'll be spicy.
All good news. But my question is, in November of 2026, are you available to run for city council?
Yeah, so that actually is something for those who didn't hear it on the room mics. Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So basically the question was, am I going to be able to, will I run for Huntington Beach City Council in 2026? And the answer to that is I'm not sure yet. I want to see what happens with our library ballot initiatives because those are going to be a really telling sign of where the city of Huntington Beach is. And currently I am cautiously optimistic that we will pass them, but we still need to get people out in the streets. We can't just assume that people are going to understand the danger that our city council presents. That being said, I do think it probably is time for someone like me to get involved in politics, even though I don't want to be a politician. Like it really is, we're at the point where we need all hands on deck. Like we need people who understand that government should be boring, right? That understand that it shouldn't be excitement and viral TikTok videos. It should be, we're talking about potholes and streetlights and balancing the budget and all the tiny little details that make a city work instead of, oh, what will get my national profile higher so I can move further up the political ladder. Like that should not be city government. So yeah, I don't know if it'll be Huntington Beach City Council or I know there's a assembly seat that's opened up for that district because I think Diane Dixon's retiring, right? And I know one of our council members, Gracie Vandermark, just announced that she's going to run for that seat. And I can promise you, Gracie is the last person you want in any sort of political power. Like she is a true believer, and her belief is that if you don't believe the same things that she does, she wants to get rid of you. She does not want you to exist in any way, shape, or form in her life, and she will use every lever of power she has to make that happen. So again, I cannot stress enough that she is bad news and you do not want her to start climbing the political ladder. So yeah, so I just, in terms of my political future, I honestly don't know, but I'm gonna try to be as effective as I can be. So.
You and then you're.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I'm from the other HD, Hermosa Beach.
There you go.
And I don't know if you're following, but I used to think we were the good HD. And our city council by a narrow 3-2 majority just voted to basically fire our great city manager. Anyways, I don't know if you're aware of that, but you should be aware that it's radiating outward to another surf town with same initials.
Yep.
My question is this: your city council, I believe, earlier passed a requirement to for voter ID and restrict the franchise.
Yep.
My question is this: I don't know if you're aware that there is a constitutional initiative afoot in California to require proof of citizenship to vote in the state of California, which would be trying to qualify for the November ballot.
Right.
And it's polled very well. Just initially, people don't know anything.
Right.
So I wondered if you were aware of it, and if in your speaking out, if you could make sure that people are aware of not to blindly sign an initiative petition and have this on the ballot, because that is just a way to totally transform California politics.
Right. Yeah. So the question for those online is, am I aware of what's going on in Hermosa Beach, which I am not, but thank you for bringing it up to me, because you are correct that this cancer is metastasizing from Huntington Beach, and they have said the right wing has said as much, that Huntington Beach is their test bed, and they're looking to spread that to other cities. So that's why it's super important that you fight back in your communities. And then the second part of the question was I aware of the, is it a constitutional amendment? So a proposed constitutional amendment that would require proof of citizenship before voting. And all I can say to that is fuck no. Like, there's a reason we don't have poll taxes anymore. There's a reason we don't have, voter information tests, because every single one of those is designed to disenfranchise people and keeping them from voting. And in a democracy, everyone needs to vote. And honestly, I would like to see us go to the Australian model, where you get fined if you don't vote. So then that way people vote, because that's how you keep a democracy, is that you stay engaged in the political process. So yes, I will definitely be speaking out on that. I know the voter ID law that passed in Huntington Beach, it was presented to the voters in a very misleading way, because that's what our city council does. I know for a fact that it's designed to disenfranchise voters, particularly poorer voters and voters of color, which again is not something we as Americans should stand for. We have fought against that in the past. We'll probably have to fight against it in the future, but right now this is the time where we have to fight it, so we got to step up and do that. So thank you for the question.
For the word using, referring to the link if they want more information.
Oh, yeah. So the question is, how can you help out with Huntington Beach's library stuff? Which is a great question. If you go to ourlibrarymatters.org, pretty easy to remember, ourlibrarymatters.org, or Protect HB. They're also helping out, but Our Library Matters is the one that's currently focused on the actual ballot initiatives. There's ways there to sign up for canvassing, for phone banking, writing postcards, and yeah, we would appreciate any help we can get on that, because the flip side of them making Huntington Beach their test bed is that if we punch them in the nose on these ballot initiatives, now it's like, oh crap, people don't like what we do. And then we can take that momentum and start building off it. So that's also why it's really important that we pass these ballot initiatives, because it does send a message, not just to the Huntington Beach politicians, but to all the right-wing politicians that are backing them. So yeah, we really do need to win on this one.
College student, seeing the impacts of intellectualism in America, and I just wanted to ask, because you mentioned, this country getting through the fight of slavery, but we still have things like, servitude in our prisons, and Prop 6 failed on the ballot here.
It's a shame.
And I was wondering, if that was possibly a worry with the, ballot initiatives you have right now. As people have been talking about this rightward shift in California, and if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah. So the question is, am I concerned about the ballot measures failing, as well as the fact that we as Americans have not grappled with our racial past and the problems that still plague us to this very day? And in terms of the stuff in America's past, I fully agree with you. Like, we got through the Civil War, right? But we never really succeeded in terms of Reconstruction, right? We got through the Civil Rights Act, but we never really succeeded in terms of getting the vote available to everyone, particularly in the South, particularly in communities of color. So the issue that we have to look at is, America is not perfect. We have to fight to try to realize the dream of America, because the dream of America is that we win the Civil War and that Reconstruction works, right? Like, the dream of America is that we come to grips with the fact that we took the land from the Native Americans who were here first and then put them on reservations. Like, that's something as a nation we have to grapple with, right? We have to figure out how to move past the racism in our country's past, how to move past the genocide in our country's past. And we have to address it in a way that makes it clear that we're approaching it from a position of history, and that this happened. And you know what? It sucks that this happened. But we need to talk about it in order to move past it. You know, a Truth and Reconciliation Committee would actually be probably one of the best things, like what they did in South Africa after apartheid. Like we need something like that. We legit need something like that, because a lot of that is what fuels MAGA, right? This idea that as a white man, your rights are being taken away because now all of a sudden, you know, black women can vote. Like, and that's ludicrous. Like, that's not the truth. And so we as a country need to understand that. In terms of the ballot initiative stuff, yeah, it would really suck if we didn't win. But the other thing is that you don't fight because you know you're going to win. You fight because it's the right thing to do, right? Like there are going to be fights where we fight because it is the right thing to do. And initially we don't win. But if you never try, then you never will win. And so when it comes to stuff like the pollsters who want us to abandon our trans community, there are a lot of very bad words I could use that I'll try to spare everyone. But the gist of my argument would be we do not leave anyone behind. Like, because when they come for one group, they don't stop at one group. They just start coming after everyone else. And so we cannot abandon anyone, even if it's an unpopular fight. And I know there are people like, well, why should we care so much about trans rights? And it's like, because trans people are people just like everyone else. They're American citizens. They serve in our military. They pay taxes. They do everything that's required to be a part of America. And they are being used as a scapegoat by people who want to make them disappear. I'm sorry, when you talk about, is someone allowed to exist or not? We don't have that debate anymore. We already had that debate. It was called World War II. And guess what? We won. Yeah, so yes, our elected officials need to understand that we do not abandon people. Even if it is an unpopular fight, even if it doesn't look like it's a fight we're going to win, we fight because it's the right thing to do, not because it's popular.
And I'm wondering if you have thought about recruiting others that are like-minded to run for the city council in Huntington Beach.
Yep.
Like there's a growing grassroots movement. Start recruiting people, even if you don't run, but even if you do run, find others doing.
Right. Yeah. So the question for those online is if I have thought about recruiting other people to help run for city council in Huntington Beach, and I have thought of that. And that's part of the reasons why I don't know if it's best for me to run or for me to support other people who are running. Right. Because I want us to win. Like I'm looking at this from a football mindset. Right. I don't care how we get there. I want us to win. And so if that means that I'm just lending my voice to other people, that's fine. If that's what's going to be most effective, then absolutely I will do that. If it means I have to run in order to lift other people up, well, I'm not going to like it, but that's what I have to do. And, you know, I think there are other people in Huntington Beach who are like-minded, who are willing to do stuff and get involved and take on that fight. And I am more than happy to work with them. And I hope I can work with them, because it would be very nice. We have 4 city council seats coming up for election in 2026. It would be very nice if we could take those 4 seats back and take back our city council and make government boring again. I'm tired of having an exciting government.
Question for Chris? Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you for your activism. Thank you for your words, with which I agree completely. I've done a lot of protesting, but I've never been arrested. What happens on the other side of that? You appear before a judge and pay the fine. You have a record.
Yep. All right, so the question is, what is it like being arrested? Like, what's the actual, like, what did I have to go through? So they jailed me, processed me. It took about 4 hours, booked me with a criminal misdemeanor of disturbing an assembly. I believe it's section 403 or 406. I can't remember, in the California Penal Code. And so I hired 2 lawyers, a First Amendment lawyer and a criminal defense lawyer, because I didn't know what the city was going to do. Like, I didn't know if they were really going to try to make an example out of me, or if it was just going to be kind of business as usual. And so it looks like it's business as usual. Though I will say the interesting thing is that because there's so much protest-related stuff going on right now, those cases are now being brought to the Special Prosecutions Unit of the Orange County DA's office. They're not just going through the normal office, because there's been so many of these protest-related cases. So I was fortunate enough that my lawyer got in contact with the DA, and they worked out a deal for a pre-filing diversion, which basically means I'd do 8 hours of a conflict resolution course, which was exciting, and then 20 hours hours of community service and then don't get arrested for 6 months. And I'm not planning on getting arrested for 6 months. But on the flip side, I ended up paying, I think, about $7,500 in lawyer's fees. So there was a cost to it, right? And I'm fortunate that as a retired athlete, I was able to absorb that cost. Now, I don't want to pay $7,500 to lawyers in order to absorb that cost, but at the same time, that is unfortunately how our legal system works. And for people who are thinking of getting involved in protesting and potentially getting arrested, make sure you talk with an attorney. Make sure that you know what your rights are. Make sure you do not talk to the police unless you have a lawyer present. Like these are all very important things, and make sure you can live with the consequences of your actions, because that's also something that I've been very aware of going back to my speaking out for LGBTQ rights with the Vikings, because I knew one of the potential consequences could be losing my job. And I was like, am I okay with this? And at the end of the day, I was okay with it. And that is what ended up happening. Obviously, I wish it didn't happen. But at the same time, I was like, for me, it's more important that I live in a society where people are treated justly than making, another $5 or $8 million playing football. Because that's, it would be great to make another $5 or $8 million playing football. But I would rather live in a world where kids can grow up and be who they are and not get bullied simply because of who they are. To me, that's more important. So make sure you know what the consequences are. If you are debating on whether or not to engage in activity that could get you arrested, make sure you know your rights. That's super important. Yep, of course.
Yes, sir. What did you major in UCLA?
Good question. Yeah, so I double majored in political science and then history. So I initially went in for computer science because I'm a huge nerd. I've read sci-fi fantasy my entire life, played video games. I'm like just massive nerd. I also happen to be really good at sports. So I originally went in for computer science. This was back when you needed to pass the engineering level physics class to get into the engineering department for the computer science major. Physics was the first class in my life. I just didn't understand what was going on. I was like, I know like the basic underpinnings. I just can't make the math work. And I was doing really well in the computer science classes because that's basically just learning another language. But I was like, if I can't pass this physics class, like I'm not going to be able to take the computer science major. I need to take classes to stay eligible for football. So I need to find a new major. And so one of my roommates at the time, he was my long snapper. He's like, hey, there's this poli-sci professor. He gives open book, open notes tests. And I'm just like, you're sold. Because I'm also fortunate that I can read very, very fast. And so I do not recommend this to the young people in this audience or online, but when you can read really, really fast and your professor has open book, open notes tests, you really only need to show up to the midterm and the final because you just read the book the night before. And then when you see the question, you're like, oh, I remember where in the book that was. I'm going to go answer it. So don't follow my example there. I promise you, study, pay attention in class. You'll turn out much better. But yeah, so I finished poli-sci in about 3 years. Still needed to keep taking classes to stay eligible because I still had 2 years of eligibility left. And I was like, well, history is basically poli-sci that's already happened. I'll just go get a history degree as well. And so yeah, there is a lot of overlap between the two of them. And I think on a more serious note, it is very, very important that people who want to be involved in politics also understand history, because then that way you know where the mistakes were made in the past and hopefully how we can avoid them moving forward into the future. All right.
I just want to say, Chris, don't try this at home. Possibly with civil disobedience, maybe, but definitely with studying it.
Right, yeah. Make sure you study, kids.
We have some kids here today.
Yeah.
But how about a big hand for Chris?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Also to speak as well. Okay. So thank you so much, Chris. All right. One thing I forgot to do earlier, and I'm only 5'11", I'm not 6'4", so I got to bring this down. But the one thing I forgot to do earlier, are there any elected officials besides our two speakers that are here today? Bob, thank you for being here. Any other elected officials that are here? Online? Judy was online or any?
Well, this is Scott Houston. I'm online. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Scott, for being here. I just want to say this is not a candidates forum, our next two speakers. We're just going to talk about local issues. So if I can bring Sara and Paul, if you can come on up. Yeah, and we just introduce you very quickly. They come on up. Sure. All right. And we're just going to have questions about local, hopefully boring city stuff. According to Chris. Sara Deen is the Vice President and Board Member of the PV Unified School District. Prior to service on the board, in addition to practicing dentistry in a private practice, she did many free clinics for the most vulnerable around the state. She also taught at 3 dental schools, including the UCLA School of Dentistry in Venice, and also at UC San Francisco and the Case Western School. She dedicates her time to ensuring families have a voice and support they need to thrive. Her primary focus on the school board, this is something very important, has been increasing school safety, closing learning gaps, creating a transparent and accountable budget, and connecting with the community to ensure their priorities are at the forefront. She is a proud Muslim American, eldest daughter with immigrant parents from Pakistan and with roots in India. She lives with her husband, Omer. Am I saying that right? Who is a practicing physician in PV, where they're raising 2 teenagers. So that is, that's a lot of work. I only have 1 and it's a lot of work. So how about a warm welcome for Sara Deen?
Yay, I get to speak after the very charismatic football player. I have a lot of my nerdy high school feelings coming up right now, right, Paul? I was a super nerd. I actually had to work and study really hard. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Democrats, both those of you that are here in person and our friends that are logged in online. Before I share anything, I wanted to extend a very heartfelt thank you to all of you. This club and its members were really integral in helping us pass Measure SOS last year. A lot of the club members worked with us to get LACDP's endorsement of the local school bond measure to fund really critical repairs of our facilities. It's no exaggeration, we were in a place where we would have to think about closing down schools. So you all made a really big difference in helping us pass Measure SOS. You also helped us elect 2 reasonable school board candidates to our school board of 5. Many of you canvassed, knocked on doors, called people. So thank you so much. I think our community is in better hands because of your efforts. So thank you. I am with Chris. Local politics should be incredibly boring. And unfortunately, school boards have been way too exciting. I ran for school board in 2022. And as I was thinking about what to share today as a summary of where things are, this is what it's been. Anti-CRT, anti-COVID policies, anti-LGBTQ efforts, dividing Muslim and Jewish students. All of these national politics have been present here in our local community. And in my opinion, they have been intentionally aimed at disrupting local education and making it harder for people like me that are on school boards and the good people that serve in our community to focus on our core task, which is supporting our students and their learning. And it's intentional. The intent is just to disrupt. That's all they have to do. They don't have to give us any solutions to solve problems. They just have to poke holes and disrupt to decrease the public's trust in our schools and encourage everybody to defund us. And this is how I would describe what it's been like serving on a school board. It's like playing chess, right? So you're moving all these pieces to make sure that you're filling the gaps in public ed. And there are gaps in public education. In public education, we are stretching the dollar so thin right now to meet the learning needs of an increasingly diverse student population. So that itself is a very complicated game, working with all your stakeholders to meet the needs of students. And then on top of that, it's like you're playing ping pong simultaneously because you've got these efforts coming from the very far right to disrupt public education. So that's what it has felt like. I want to remind folks that school board members, while we are locally elected, we're actually state officials. Our job is to implement state law. And I know the big question everybody is wondering is, how are the federal government's efforts disrupting our schools? And I'm going to go through that really quick. But generally speaking, most of my work is around implementing state law here and then reaching out to the local community when it comes to interpreting some of the state law. There's some room there when we are picking our curriculum and that sort of thing. The federal government really gets engaged when somebody files an OCR complaint. So of claims that there's a civil right that's been violated, usually around students with disabilities, people will then reach out to the OCR under the Department of Ed and file a complaint. In Palos Verdes, 2% of our budget comes from the federal government. So it's a very tiny slice. That's been a big question recently. Okay, So I'm going to quickly go through the federal pieces because I know those are of high interest. If you have specific questions, I can come back to it, but I want to focus more on the local stuff. But just really quick, yes, there were conversations around Head Start, whether or not Head Start would get disrupted. Head Start, of course, supports our most vulnerable students across the United States. In February, there was a temporary disruption in Head Start services. Some people that serve these communities did lose their jobs, and there have been at least 4 Head Start locations across the country that had to shut down due to this disruption of payments. It's not a huge, this doesn't really impact us in Palos Verdes too much. The other piece, the federal government, Trump was able to cut $600 million in teacher training grants through the Department of Ed. And the claim was that these teacher training programs were pushing a DEI agenda. There were lawsuits by Democratic states, but that's one place where we lost. So there was a California, the state of California, we lost $148 million in grant money to recruit and train new teachers. This has really hit rural areas in the United States the hardest. Special ed is a question we're getting really often, given that Trump wants to shut down the Department of Ed and shuffle services. Currently, as of May 6th, Trump has said that he will keep the current level of funding for special ed. But how will that happen? How will funds get allocated? Nobody really knows. It seems like there's an interest in bypassing the state government and funding special ed directly to school districts. None of us really know what that means yet. OCR capacity, the office that files civil rights complaints, because of the mass firings of the Department of Ed, OCR is really backlogged right now. So it's harder to have those cases get their due attention. Title IX. So last year, under President Biden, there was an update to Title IX regulations. The main update was that we were now extending as a country discrimination protected based on gender identity and sexual orientation, not just your sex at birth. And those Title IX regulations were supposed to go into effect August of last year, and school districts across the country were supposed to implement the new regulations. Moms of Liberty filed a suit with the federal government saying that these new Title IX regulations are discriminatory. And what that did was that if you are a school district that has an active Moms of Liberty chapter, you were under injunction. And so even though Biden had passed the updated 2024 Title IX regulations, you were still required to follow the 2020 regulations that were put in place under President Trump. In Palos Verdes Peninsula Unified, we do have an active Moms of Liberty chapter. Because of that, our school district has been under injunction. We've been following the 2020 regulations. An interesting other piece of Trump's 2020 regulations is they phrase it as their stronger due process. And what that looks like is the person who is accused of sexual assault or sexual harassment gets to cross-examine the accuser or the victim. I'm almost done with the federal stuff. Okay, in February, there was an executive order. This is the DEI executive order saying that Trump was going to pull $2.4 billion in Title I funding, $1.3 billion for special education, and $250 million for after-school programs if your school district is doing anything that might be considered DEI. Thankfully here, there were 2 lawsuits filed. California participated as well. And this ruling so far, he has not won this one. So we're winning on this front right now. A New Hampshire judge said that Trump's order didn't sufficiently define diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. It limited free speech and went beyond his authority. The Trump administration is most likely going to appeal this ruling. Federal immigration. This is my last one on federal. Okay. On immigration, the reality is immigration is under federal purview. And so what we've really been focusing on is making sure that staff has the training. We do not collect immigration information on any of our students. There was a bill proposed by Al Mortucci was a co-author. It was the California Safe Haven Schools Act. And now that bill is in the California State Legislature. It ended up in the suspense file in the Senate Appropriations. You can reach out to Senator Allen if that's something you're interested in. State, the governor released his budget just this past week. There's going to be workshops all this week for us to really understand what that's going to look like. Bottom line there is that the on-again, off-again tariffs led to stock market swings. This impacts personal income taxes, including capital gains, which is leading to a $12 billion deficit for 25-26. And what that's going to feel like at the school district level is our COLA has been decreased, the cost of living adjustment, and our LCFF, the number of dollars we get per student, we're losing about $72 per student. I'm going to jump now to our local school district. We are in the works of understanding the budget climate. We have to pass our budget before July 1. We are in the middle of negotiations with our teachers. So far, things are looking really positive. If you guys remember when I ran for school board, we had a very antagonistic relationship between the district and the teachers. Now we have a relatively collaborative relationship, and I'm quite hopeful. Measure SOS, we just we sold the first series of bonds for $75 million a couple of months ago. Last week, the school board approved the project prioritization list. Things are moving forward. Again, thank you so much for your good work on that. Palos Verdes is rolling out our e-bike program this fall. It's kind of along lines with what Redondo Beach has already done in a lot of the beach cities. So e-bikes are only allowed for grade 4 and above. You have to take a e-bike safety course, and you need to get a registration sticker to park your e-bike at our campuses. I'm trying to wrap up because I have a couple minutes, right?
Take questions together.
Got it. Got it. Oh, should have gone first. You're fine. SoCal ROC. I also sit on the board of SoCal ROC, which offers career technical education. We're having our open house this Thursday. I bring that up because career technical education is also being politicized in our communities, where you're either a liberal that supports public education or you're a conservative that supports career technical education. We can't let that happen. We need both. Every kid deserves to experience a spark at some point. For some kids, that happens in the classroom. For some kids, it doesn't. It happens through CTE, and it's not an either or. We need to invest and close the gaps on both pathways. And like Chris said at the very beginning, I am just hoping we can make school board really boring again. Thank you.
We're going to have Paul speak, and then we're going to have questions for both of our elected officials. Paul is Mayor Pro-Tem in RPV, while also serving in leadership for the LA County Democratic Party. He's a husband, father, U.S. Army veteran, and Deputy Attorney General. Raised by hardworking immigrant parents, Paul learned the value of service, dedicated to his, that's what he dedicated his career to. He went to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and he served as a U.S. Army officer overseas in the DMZ between South Korea and North Korea. After completing his service with the rank of captain, he earned a law degree from Loyola, and he went to work as a deputy district attorney in LA County. And I met Paul, it was a year or 2 years ago when he was first running office at an Adam Schiff was speaking at his fundraiser at Connie's house. So Paul, let's have a big hand now for Paul Seo.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I'm actually on call for officer-involved shooting. So Rob was he was gracious enough to let me come up here and speak really quickly. Just going off of what Chris was saying, I actually have a lot of experience in Huntington Beach because that oil spill, I'm the one who actually prosecuted the oil company that spilled all that stuff out there. So I completely understand, and we poached a really good deputy city manager for Huntington Beach. So Catherine Junn is now with us working. Now, given so much gloom and doom these days, and it feels so hopeless. So I just want to give you some hope about things that actually work. So RPV, Rancho Palos Verdes as a city, is doing really well. The city itself, the staff, the city council is actually are producing a lot of results. And there's 2 Democrats and 3 Republicans who are working really well together to actually deliver things that actually matter to folks. Because we talk to folks all the time, and all of us in here are politicians, right? Because you come to these things, you understand just because you're elected or you're appointed to something doesn't make you a politician. I think just because you care about politics and what comes out in the national news and local news, that's what makes you a politician, right? Because you understand what's actually happening. So based on that, a lot of folks just want things to work. They just want things to work, and they just want to make sure that they have a government that they can trust in, that they can feel they have good people to do the work and deliver for them, right? So here's a very boring example of how our city works. Chris talked about potholes and infrastructure and just having things operate like they're supposed to, right? So I'm going to start with a couple points, things that we've been doing very well in the city, and then I'll end with the semi-bad one, which is a landslide. I think everybody knows what's happening in our city. But I'll tell you, I'll end with that. The first one that I want to tell you guys about is the Public Safety Division. The reason why we came up with the Public Safety Division and we implemented it is because we wanted to make sure that all the things that our sheriff's deputies were doing pertain to policing. So we want to make sure that their efforts of policing and making sure that, you know, robberies aren't occurring or burglaries aren't occurring, the meat and potatoes of the job are being executed, and they're not standing on a corner because of a car accident. So we created a division to make sure all the admin work is taken care of on our side. And if you guys don't know, money is a huge issue for local municipalities. And when you project out the sheriff's contract for us, it starts to cross lines, revenue and expenses, right? So in order to alleviate that, we brought on board these folks so that we can take those responsibilities away from them, keep our city safe, but at the same time, start to chip away at the services that are actually needed. Now, we can always ramp up if we need it, but, you know, budget-wise, that was the important thing. And we wanted to make sure that our city stayed safe. We had the best services possible and everybody was serviced correctly and heard. So we created the Public Safety Division. Now, one of the things that's very controversial, especially in here and in the Peninsula, is cell phone reception, right? People hate it in terms of vertical infrastructure, but when I was campaigning, a lot of the parents would come up to me, especially around schools, and they said, hey, I can't contact my kids. There's so many dead spaces. Now, just as an example, I want to say a couple months ago, we had a lot of emails come in from our constituency saying that, hey, because the cell phone reception was so bad, a gentleman who was walking couldn't call an ambulance and ended up passing away. They couldn't call for over 10 minutes. That's a huge deal. So previously, we had cell phone reception under the umbrella of infrastructure management, but we changed that and we made it public safety. So we started pushing it. Now the ordinance have changed. Now we have conversations with Crown Castle, who puts up these structures, as well as cell carriers. Everybody's on the same page now. So I believe in fall we'll start to see more service in terms of dead areas to increase public safety, to make sure people can actually call, but it won't affect the vertical infrastructure. So how they're going to do it is they're going to actually put small wireless facilities on light poles, right, above them. So they're not blocking anybody's view or anything like that. Now, in that sense, we're making great and tremendous progress, and we're delivering on that promise because I ran on it and I have to deliver. And I get hate mail from people saying, well, how come it's not done yet? And it's constant. And there's a retired judge, I'm pretty sure he's probably hearing you now, but he's always emailing me saying, hey, you ran on it, where's it at? The next part is we created a youth advisory committee. And the reason why we committed that was because, or created it, was because we needed to make sure that we gave a voice to everybody in the city. So that group is from 7th to 12th graders. And what we wanted to focus on them and to make sure what we wanted to do with them specifically was to make sure that we heard their voice in terms of what they're thinking about, what they care about. And the biggest thing that they cared about across the board was mental health. So we tried to do as much as possible to make sure they get the support that they need, and then try to work with external organizations so that these guys can go and be a voice for the community. And as a city council, we provide the funding and the resources to execute it for our kids. The municipal ordinance for e-bikes actually originated from our city. We drafted it because we had a lot of issues, and hopefully that goes to other cities in the peninsula to make sure we have a uniform one across the board and they stay safe. And in terms of the landslide, actually, before I get to that, electrical infrastructure. I know a lot of folks care about it. There's a gentleman that lived across the street from me. He was 94 at the time, Korean War vet. This was maybe 2 years ago. The electricity went out for about 2 days. And I went across the street to his house during the wintertime because his chimney was billowing smoke. Ran over there because I thought his house was on fire. What I found out was he chopped down a tree and was burning it in his chimney because he couldn't get his fireplace started. And I got super angry and told SE, hey, you guys need to send people out here to fix a problem. They told me to go pound sand and have them go buy a generator. That made me lose my mind. So that being said, we held the SE accountable and we started improving the infrastructure. So the infrastructure hadn't been touched in 25, 30 years. So a lot of the wires that weren't covered are now being covered, and they're putting in new infrastructure to actually fix the electrical reliability of like Grandview Estates, Grandview, that actual grid itself, and on the western corridor. Because some of the interesting things that they would say to me is like, oh, the electricity went out because a car hit a pole. I was like, the car hit that pole 6 times? Doesn't make any sense to me, right? So we started producing these results slowly, and now the electrical grid is updated. We're still working on the landslide area, right? Because that's completely out. Now, the last one I want to talk about is the landslide itself. One of the biggest things that I realized as local municipality, and a lot of folks know here on the call and in the room, that the local municipalities like our cities can have all the solutions in the world, but we just don't have the money. Okay, so our annual budget right now is about 39 million. That's for the whole city. Right now, we spend about 40 to 60 million just on the landslide. Okay, and we tapped into reserves. And about 2.5 weeks ago, we got doged. So originally, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we were guaranteed a BRIC grant of $23 million. Eventually became about 16, and that was for the long-term solution we're going to implement for the landslide. That completely disappeared. So now we have a funding gap about that big. But in terms of the landslide itself, the progress that we made is incredible. In certain portions of it was moving 12 inches a week. Now that part of the landslide is moving about 0. That's the eastern part. The western part, we put more deep dewatering wells to get the water out of the ground, and it slowly becomes stabilized. We're not there yet, but the solutions that we have are working, and it's getting there. But the problem is getting the funding to make sure that we continue to, basically the O&M for it is the operations and maintenance, because it takes time and money to be able to manage and maintain all the wells that we have so they stay active and pump water out of the ground. So those are the things that the city's actually doing, and actually fixing. Our city staff and other city council members, we don't bicker and fight because we have real world issues that we need to solve. And so far, we've been producing for our city and our constituency, and I think we're doing a tremendous job. Ara and Catherine, our deputy city manager, and our city manager are doing an amazing job coordinating, making sure that they work with all different agencies to make sure we get the grants and the resources we can to actually fix the problems. So for us, I just want to give a glimmer of hope to everybody and say, hey, Democrats and Republicans can actually work together to make things work again and to deliver for the people in the city. And I hope that our city council and our city council meetings are an example to the rest of the country and the state of how people can work together to fix actual problems. And hopefully the other part too is that we get some notice that we can actually get money into our city to actually stop the landslide and stabilize it so people can get back to their lives again. So hopefully when you walk away today, you can see that city government, unlike Huntington Beach, actually works. And you don't have to show up and watch the videos because if you want to go to sleep, if you want to go to sleep, watch our videos. But we're doing a great job. We just need more money to fix the problems. So thank you very much for your time, guys. I appreciate it.
I want to thank Sara and Paul for building us up instead of tearing us down and coming up with real world solutions. And it's not just because they're afraid that Chris is going to come to their meetings and shut it down. All right, great. You have that right though, Chris. You do. Oh yeah. All right. Okay. So you're okay for 6 months. All right. Very good. Okay. Now, do we have any questions again, just about the RPV City Council or about the school board for PV for Paul or for Sara? So any questions from our group? Yes, sir. Just for Paul. Okay.
That's all from that's what you go. Hi. So what are those solutions? I know it's water, but I assume it's related to the water.
Right. So the problem is water. It's very simple. We need to get the water out of the ground. Now, the long-term solution that we had was for hydroggers. And these hydroggers, they're basically huge pumps. And for us to actually keep the land stable, we got to get the water out of the ground. And these pumps, instead of being 6 to 8 inches wide, they would be feet in terms of the diameter. So it would be bigger, a lot bigger. And the amount of water that it would pump out would be a tremendous amount. So in order to do that, though, we would have had to have that money, but we don't have it anymore. So at this point, the only thing we can do is to keep pumping the drills or the wells that we have now, which is, I believe, close to 20, if I did my math right. But those deep dewatering wells are pumping at a tremendous rate. And some areas are starting to dry out and we're able to see progress, but that Doge money is sorely needed to do the long-term fix because we can only sustain it for a certain amount of time. But we had to start tweaking our revenue streams in order to maintain what we spend in terms of maintenance on these wells. And that's the scary part right now. So hopefully in the next few years, we can get grants and backfill from FEMA and things like that to actually augment what we're spending. But if we keep going at this rate without getting any money, we're going to basically, we're going to crash our reserves. And we're not going to be able to do anything else in the city, which is going to be terrible.
All right. Our next question for either one. I do a question about the Moms for Liberty. How much is this an official group? Is it an unofficial group? And how can we stop them from causing so much of chaos?
Yes, so to be under injunction, it only applied if you had registered and active members that were confirmed. So they had to come forward somehow. I'm not sure how they went about that. I wasn't involved. How do we prevent them from, I think what I have seen up close, if Democrats start doing a really good job of local governance, communicating with constituents, solving everyone's everyday problems, as you know, at the lowest level of escalation, that prevents the naysayers from saying, see, they suck. They don't know what they're doing. We need to just disrupt. And I think that's what this current school board, we have a very wonderful school board majority right now that's really grounded and centered in keeping us focused on students. And our current superintendent has expanded the way the district communicates with the public. And so we've been able to keep the naysayers kind of, we still listen. You should listen to everybody, but we're solving as best as we can, you know, all of the learning gap issues, the facilities problems. So it gives them, the Moms of Liberty groups, less things to complain about.
Great. Any more questions for our group for the local? Yes, sir. Okay.
Of how, to what extent this has depressed, the sliding has depressed property values?
Oh, sliding in property values.
I don't think anybody has. I don't think anybody's taken an inventory of how much the property values have decreased. One thing that I can tell you is I get a lot of phone calls from private equity groups, people who are involved in real estate groups and whatnot, asking kind of like what the timeline is. Because for a lot of these guys, speculative wise, if you're, let's say you're a group, a private equity group, and you have, you know, let's say you have $5 million that you want to invest in a market that's terrible right now. Where can you park it? What can you buy? And then what can you get on the back end? So they always ask like, hey, what's your timeline look like in terms of stability? Because they know for a fact that, hey, once we stabilize it and it goes back to the historic movements, it's going to be fine again. That property value is going to come back up. So I think they're trying to see if they can get a windfall. But to answer your question in regards to, was there some type of study done in terms of how much property value was lost? I'm not sure. I think we can probably take it guesstimate. If let's say we were to let the whole thing go and there's about 300 houses, you can kind of do the math on what that looks like and how much property tax is going to be gone to the county if it disappears. Yeah. I think a lot of people are wondering that. So I made a lot of trips to Sacramento and DC, and then the last time I was in DC was in December, and we actually talked to appropriations. I sat down with the guys and I actually asked them, I was like, hey, aside from all the arguments that I'm making now, can you also tell the administration and the powers that be, the chair of the appropriations committee, can you please tell them the golf course is inside of, well, it's not in the slide area, but it's vicinity of. Obviously we got dosed, so it didn't really go over too well. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. So, quick show of hands here. How many people have students in the PV, either formerly or currently in the PV school district? Okay, very good. And how many people here live in RPV? Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Very good. All right. Excellent. So we have time for a couple more questions. And yes, ma'am, you had one? Okay. Sorry.
Through and it died, and then they resurrected a different one in 8715, and it was apparently passed out of the education committee unanimously. Okay, so the problem that we have with these is that they are ethnic studies bills, And they are looking to limit the subject matter to only those that are inside the US that experience depression. So anything that is international is basically off the table. And I'm wondering what your opinion of this, or if you were aware of it, what we would do.
Yes, so AB 1468 was specific to ethnic studies, but the new bill, which is a gut and amend, AB 715 is far more broad ranging and goes beyond ethnic studies. I think I'll say two things before I talk specifically about the bill. As someone who has worked a lot on trying to keep students safe, welcome, and included, there are things that are helpful and there are things that are not helpful in creating supportive environments. I have specifically also worked on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and other forms of bias in our schools. And so sometimes the things politicians do don't make kids safer, they make kids even more isolated and vulnerable. So that's one piece. Two, this is I know I'm amongst Democrats right now, so I think it's good to do some truth telling amongst our own. I think when we are angry with Trump for doing certain things, we need to hold ourselves accountable for the same things. So we cannot just create a stink when Trump does something that limits free speech and academic freedom, but not be critical when Democrats may be doing the same thing. So again, this is a gut and amend bill. It became publicly available on May 12th. On May 14th, this is just last week, this is hot off the presses. Two rules of the legislature were suspended to fast track this bill for a special hearing in the Education Committee led by our Assembly member, Al Maritsuchi. The bill does three things in the Education Code. I'm just reading out the bill language. This is not my interpretation. So Section 1D creates an anti-Semitism coordinator for the state of California. Section 2, as it relates to protecting against discrimination, it expands the definition of nationality. That was my language. It's expanding the definition of nationality as a protected characteristic. The new language would be, it's adding this phrase, quote, residency in a country with a dominant religion or distinct religious identity. And the third things it does, it now holds school boards accountable not only for adopting and approving instructional materials, but also for allowing materials. So for example, 2 days ago, I was at Mira Catalina Elementary School, and there was a teacher there leading a lesson on making robotic fingers. It was the coolest thing. So the kids were taking paper, they used paper, a paper clip, and string to create a robotic finger. So I asked the awesome teacher, I said, was this part of our curriculum or did you find this elsewhere? She said, no, this wasn't part of STEM Scopes. STEM Scopes is the science curriculum that the school board voted on and adopted for science in our elementary schools. This was, the paper robotic finger, was something she found online. She used her professional judgment as a teacher and decided that this project would support the core curriculum and help us reach a state standard, and that's why she pulled it into the classroom. School boards do not have to approve every single material that a teacher brings in. This bill's the third piece of it now, elevates or holds school boards now accountable for anything a teacher might bring into a classroom. So on May 14th, the hearing was held. There was a lot of public comment. The California Teachers Association indicated a lean no position based on how it would hamstring teachers and put them more at risk. CSBA, which is California School Board Associations, also signaled a lean no because it is not supportive of local control and is not supportive of school board members. The bill did pass through with a 9-0 vote, so it now moved to appropriations, where I'm hearing there's already existing support for the bill and there's no amendments as of yet. This is my suggestion to folks here. I highly suggest you read the bill on the legislature's website. It's not that long. It'll take you less than 10 minutes. Watch the recording. If you need help finding the recording, I can help you with that. And once you've read the bill and you've watched the recording, feel free to reach out to Assemblymember Maritsuchi and any of the assembly members on the Appropriations Committee and share what you think. But I think the general sentiment between CTA, CSBA was that this measure will not help Jewish students feel safer and more supported, that it's going to single them out even more, and it's going to really restrict and create a harmful learning environment by making teachers and school board members more vulnerable to clampdowns on free speech.
Thank you. 7:15, great. Do we have any other questions from our group? Because one thing I want to ask is, in case we all need a good night's sleep, and because Chris has reminded us that these meetings need to be really boring. When is the next RPV City Council meeting, and when is the next PV the school board meeting? Just in case we need a good night's sleep.
Our board meetings do not put anyone to sleep. They're actually, unfortunately, very exciting. I believe our next school, I should have come prepared with that. We just had one this last Wednesday, so it'll be not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday.
Ours is on Tuesday. Our mayor is out of town, so I'll be running the meetings. If you guys want to come hang out online and say hi, you guys are more than welcome.
Some people right?
Yes, so real quick story. We had, so you guys know what P files are, right? Everybody knows what P files are. That was the most buried item in our agenda. And then for some reason, LA Times and Daily Breeze like put it all over the news. It was on NPR, and that was the most innocuous thing that we talked about. So go figure about, the priorities.
Thank you. All right. And for our board member and also for Chris, how many UCLA alums here or kids who went to UCLA? All right, just a few. Okay, excellent. That's good to know. All right. I'm sorry? All right, and now I worked at SC for 5 years, so I was at the Marshall School. So yeah, that's exciting. Yes. How many people from SC? Okay, just 3 or 4 of us. Okay, very good. So Chris, you have the majority here, sir. Right. Any final questions? Because I really want to thank our fantastic speakers, Chris, Sara, and Paul. This is one of the more fun meetings we've had, and I just want to emphasize, please, on July 20th, we'll be having our annual picnic. So please, there'll be a lot on our website. And once again, thanks to Reggie for running this meeting for us, doing all the technology for us. And we're grateful. And then we'll have an update very soon about our next meeting in May. So with that, we conclude our May meeting. Thank you very much.